Hey, welcome to, I guess it's part two. I don't know, they're sort of separate, but in the last video, we made this pumpkin that came out relatively cute. I think he is adorable, and we did do some paint job on him as well, and that was a lot of fun. But in this video, let's go ahead and take this guy and turn him into something a lot more unique and special, right? So just like a real pumpkin, if you get one at the store or you pick one, we need to carve it, right? So let's do that. Let's go through the process of trying to figure out how can we do that in ZBrush. How can I maybe hollow this out and then, carve it, right? So the first thing I would like to do before I do anything is let's decide on the shape of the head that I will use. So essentially what I'm thinking, and I'm just totally concepting this kind of a wild west, just kind of in my mind of what I want. But essentially what I was thinking of is having almost like a spider pumpkin. So you have like a robot spider. So this would be like his head, and then you have the long legs, and maybe he is somewhat, a troublemaker, right? So that's my intention for this video. All right, so let's have fun. To get started, I'm gonna grab my move brush and follow me along and just see what comes, what obviously it's probably not gonna be exactly the same, but maybe you can create something super funny and creative and crazy, right? Let's just literally have fun. All right, so let's do this. I'm gonna make my brush much larger, and for a minute, let me just hide the stem so it doesn't bug me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my symmetry, but in our last video we were using this radial feature. Let me just switch it to X. So that's going to make it a little more wonky and uneven, and that's what I want, right? I'm kind of shooting for that. So maybe, I can bring all this in a little more and just try and create something more custom, right? So you don't look at it and say, oh, that's the pumpkin that I see everywhere. So I'm gonna do something like this, and again, just a little bit uneven. All right, so let's say I like this. Trying to figure out, yeah. So the reason I did this is because I can have like maybe like a big mouth or big smile, and we can even actually complement the smile. So I'm thinking of like a huge smile here, and eyes, right? All right, very cool. So now I changed the shape of my pumpkin, and you can do the same. I'm currently in 256. I did jump out of Dynamesh, so I wouldn't mess up these nice lines. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. I think we're going to be Dynameshing this a lot, right? So if we do that, because I do want to hollow this out as well, let me increase the resolution a little more. I'm going to go to 512 and do Dynamesh. I'm going to say no, and that's going to give me about 1 million or so points, and I think that's pretty good. So now if I Dynamesh this and start polishing it, it's going to give me something, somewhat clean, right? Now let's go ahead and make it empty inside. So to do this, I'm going to duplicate this. I am going to turn on my transparency, grab my move, and I'm just going to I'm going to press X and scale this in. And when I scale this in, you can see it's going to start creating thickness for our pumpkin. You can really see and decide how thick do you want the pumpkin to be. So I'm just going to go for something like this right here. And if I wanted to make it a little bit taller, I'm watching the top of the head here. I kind of would like this to be a little bit closer to the head, so it's kind of even going all the way around, right? And now what I'm going to do is I need to subtract this inner shape from the outer shape. How do we do that? So if you want to subtract something, all you have to do is let's jump out of the transparency mode. We need to position the shape that we're subtracting below the other shape, right? So this is going to be our main shape. This one is going to be subtracting shape. And then you just want to come here and click on this little button right here. That's going to tell ZBrush that you want to subtract this. And if you wanted to preview that, which you currently kind of can't, right? Because this is overlapping our other shape, you could turn on live booleans, and that will in real time show us the subtraction. But honestly, I don't even want to do that. I actually want to bake in my subtraction and not do live booleans. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to subtract the inner shape, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top shape and merge it down with the inner one while it's set to be subtracted. So I'm going to merge down and say okay. And now they're together, right? But now while this button is on still Dynamesh mode, right, I can do Control and drag to re-Dynamesh. Now when I re-Dynamesh, you can see my points went to 1.9 million, and now the inside of the pumpkin is indeed empty because we merged it with a subtracted shape. I know it's kind of crazy, but let me show you. So if I do Control and Shift and grab this knife tool, and let's just cut the top of this pumpkin. And now if we peek inside, you can see what happened, right? It literally hollowed it out or emptied it out. And that's perfect because now this is going to allow us to carve it, right? So let me undo that. All right, so what's the next step? Next step is let's just like a real pumpkin, let's cut off the top of it, and we'll use that as kind of the head, right? So I'm going to do Control Shift. Let me grab the knife curve, and let's do Control Shift and start figuring out where we want to cut it. Press spacebar to move this around. I'm just going to go right here in the middle, press Alt. And of course, if I just cut it, right, that's going to do that. I don't want to do that because I still want to cut it, but I want to save that piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control Shift and then press spacebar. And that's going to give me an option to split to parts. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to turn that on. And now if I do the same cut one more time, you can see that it's going to cut the mesh, but also separate the two meshes into different groups. So if I do Control Shift and click to get rid of the mask, it looks like absolutely nothing happened, right? But if we turn on our polyframe, you can see that there is a cut right here. So if I do auto groups, you can see that these are indeed two separate meshes and they are two different groups. Now, how do we make it look like so you can see this actual line of where the cut was? Just like in real life, if you took a knife to the pumpkin, you even if you put that back on, right, you would see that seam, that line. So how do we get that going? Well, we can polish it, but instead of polishing it on my UI here, what I can do is I can go to deformation. And in here, there's a few different options. One of them is polish by groups, right? So now using this polish by groups, if I turn this on, this little button right here on the right, and do just a little bit of a polish, you can see that very quickly I'm going to get some kind of a separation effect. And essentially that's what I want, right? I want to show where that separation is. I like that. And I think that's pretty fantastic. It did smooth my grooves a little bit as well, but I don't really care because I can always use masking to punch those back in if I wanted to. But now I have this really cool, interesting effect of this being separate, and that's perfect. All right, let me double check my stem, see where that is. If I select it and grab my move, I can always put it back into position. We can always, change the size of this as well. Keep that in mind. We're not stuck on this being the same size. So now this is a great start for to continue carving our pumpkin. Now it's empty, it's been sliced on top, and it's all pretty much ready, right? Now it's just a matter of deciding what kind of carving do you want to do, right? Do you want it to be symmetrical or not? What is your design? And if you wanted to cheat, you could actually bring in like an alpha, right? Like an image from Photoshop, a flat image. Just make sure that the background is black and the parts that you want to cut out are white. So black will be transparent automatically when you import this. And then you can use that as an alpha to project it on your pumpkin. So a really cool trick if that's something you want to do. Maybe you want to have a very specific design or a face of your pumpkin. And you can even do that from, other programs like Illustrator or your iPad or something. You can project anything you want and just extrude it. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it a little more casual and just draw something that I like. Let me just press Control, make sure my pen is on. Let's go ahead and activate our active symmetry, still while holding the control button. So I am using the mask, right? And let's just decide, you know, what type of eyes do we want? I'm thinking of something along these lines. Maybe they are somewhat slanted, and I think that works. This kind of looks weird on my end right here. It's kind of overlapping there. So let me do Control Alt, and I'm gonna make this part a little more sharp and a little shorter, right? So it doesn't go through my lines in like a weird way. And I think that's pretty cool. We can do more with the eyes. If I wanted to slant this part too, I can again hold on the Alt key and maybe just create more of a slant here. So I think that's interesting, kind of an interesting eyes. And for the nose, let's do something simple. I'm just gonna hold on the Control key and just do like a little triangle. And if I want to clean that up again, just hold on the Alt key, make it maybe a little sharper. Kind of a classic nose here for the pumpkin. And I don't really want it to be super big. I think I kind of like that. It's nice and simple. Now for the smile, I want to have a big smile. And let me just make it somewhat messy at first, and then we can just quickly clean this up. And I don't really know how big I want his mouth to be open, but something enough where we can maybe stick a couple of teeth in there, right? So we'll do something like this. And now to sharpen this, I can hold on the Alt key and clean this up. Alright, so that looks pretty creepy, and I think this is this will totally work. So now what my intention to do is let's turn this masking into some kind of a geometry, right? And then what we'll do is we'll take the geometry and subtract it from our external shell, punching a hole through these, right? So how does that work? Let's do this. Let's go to Extract, and let's make sure that our double is turned on. This way it's going to give us a thicker result. And we could change the thickness. I'm going to go to, I'll try 0.1 initially. And let me do extract. Okay. And the cool thing about this is that I know that it's extracting externally and internally, right? Because I have a double on, which means I know this is going to be thick enough to punch through the shell of my external pumpkin. So I hope that makes sense. So this double right now is really important that you have that on. Now, if I say accept, that's going to give me a different layer with this mesh. Let's do Control and drag. And now what we want to do is we want to take this and subtract it from the main shape. So to do this, I'm going to click on this button right here and make sure my live booleans are turned on, right? And that's going to give me something very close to what I need. And there's some issues that I still see. So I can grab my move, for example, right? And I can just move this around and make sure that it's going all the way through, so I'm not getting these strange interferences with my mesh, right? Okay, and then if you wanted to see what the actual shape looks like, you can always turn on your polyframe, and that's going to give you kind of a transparent see-through of what's happening. We can even turn the transparency on and see the actual thickness of the shape that we're subtracting and how it's looking and how it's working, right? So all of that is something we can check. So let me go ahead and commit to this. And let's say I like it, right? How do I bake this in now and turn it into a final shape, right? So I can start maybe cleaning this up more or sculpting it or do whatever I want with it. How do we bake in the live booleans? So to do this, make sure you save your subtool at this point in time. And what we could do is we can come down here and find something called Boolean. And now we can do make Boolean mesh. All right. So when I click on make Boolean mesh, you will see up here there's another tool that was created called UMesh. So if I click on that, you will see that this no longer has the live booleans, right? We don't have the booleans activated. Everything is kind of merged together, but now we have these really nice clean cuts for our pumpkin, just like we would in real life, right? It looks like it's been almost cut with a real knife. I almost like all of these little distortions. I think it's pretty cool. Of course, at this point, if you turn on your polyframe, you can see that these pieces have been merged, but they're still separate. So at any time, if we wanted to, we could actually go to split and split them by groups. The next thing that I like to do is I want to bring in some specific elements that are part of our carving design, right? So one of them obviously is the eyes. So let's do this. I'm going to insert a, let me think about this. I think just a cylinder, right? I'm going to bring in the cylinder and create almost like a coin-like effect for eyes. So let's see. I'm going to jump out of a perspective view, hold on the shift key, and that's going to rotate, allow me to rotate this 90 degrees. I'm going to make it much smaller, and of course decide on the thickness of the eyes. Very cool. And then of course we can turn this into Dynamesh 128. Let me try that. I think that's fine, actually. That's fine. Let's grab something like H polish, and let's just actually emphasize this even more, right? Maybe this was literally cut out with a knife, and it's gonna have this kind of a effect of not being perfectly round at all, right? And it's gonna have some flat edges and some are not, a little bit uneven, something like that. And I think all of these add uniqueness to your character design, right? So I think that's great. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit smaller and put it into position and figure out, you know, what kind of size do we want and all of that. So I kind of want mine to be, he's a mean pumpkin, so maybe something like this. And of course I can move this into position. I need to rotate it. Now I'm just matching this angle up here, and I'm just gonna start moving it towards the top lid there, right? So something, I think something like that is what I was looking for. That's pretty perfect. Now we can mirror this over to the other side in 1 second. Before we do that, let's do another little trick. Let's do a little cut in the eye. So I'm gonna go to draw, do Control and Shift, grab my knife curve here, and let me just do something along these lines. Holding the space bar, you can move this around, and I just want to do like a deep cut right into his eye for stylistic purposes. Do something like that. And it didn't cut it through because remember, if I do Control Shift and press space bar, I had this split to parts activated. I can turn that off, right? I actually do not want that at this point. I just want to do like a cut, a deep cut like this. And I personally like this a lot. I think it's great. Let me do, let me mirror it across, and then I'll do mirror and weld. Now I have two of them, right? And we can see what that looks like. That's pretty much perfect. Let's decide what is next. I think to kind of finish this off, the final thing that I'm thinking of is adding some teeth. But I'm thinking out loud kind of, what do you guys think if we lift this mesh up a little bit, the head one, and just really distort this clean line here, right? How do we do that? So one thing we could do is if we turn this on, we could see that this is a different group, right? So obviously I could do Control Shift and click, and now I could do split hidden, right? And that's gonna leave this on its own, give it to me on its own layer. Let me go to solo mode and just check it out. That's interesting. I see some really strange distortions. I don't like those. I'm gonna get, how do I clean these up? Well, I need to go back into Dynamesh mode to clean this up, right? So let me change this to 512 as we had before and just do Dynamesh. And that's going to automatically kind of seal all that, right? I don't really like that. Let me double check my main shape, make sure I don't have, oh, it has that too. Okay, same thing. I'm gonna take this and let me change this to 512 as well, right? And let me do a Dynamesh. And that's going to clean that up as well and make sure I don't have any of that weirdness anywhere else, right? Interesting little cleanup I had to do. That's okay. All right, so I'm gonna go back here and let me jump out of the solo mode. And now if I wanted to rough this up a little bit just for visual you know, uniqueness, I can just move this around a little more. Maybe lift some of this up and do something like that. Maybe this one could be like over a little more and up. And just mess it up a little more, right? And even just doing this, I think, is already making it look a little more interesting. I'm going to try to see if I can lift these, kind of create more of an angle here. I really want to make it look like it was just cut off and then kind of slapped on top without much thought, right? So it's a little somewhat messy, a little bit. And I can even touch this up too, right? Let's do the same thing here. Maybe I can pull this one up, this one maybe down. So again, just mess this up a little more so it doesn't look perfectly even. I know these little touch-ups might seem insignificant, but when you look at the overall shape, you know, far away even, right? You do pick up these little tiny things that you put your time in. And I think that's important, right, as an artist, just to pay attention to little details. Let's go ahead and take a look with our BPR here, and I think that looks great, okay? Nice, let's go ahead and continue. So next, I would love to add some teeth to this guy, and we just have to figure out what kind of teeth. Do we want them square or sharp? I think that sharp is what I'm looking for, especially if he's gonna be kind of a dangerous robot-looking character, right? So let's add some sharp teeth to this guy. So I'm gonna insert a, let me think about this. Let's just insert, I could do a cone, right? Or I wasn't sure if I wanted to make the teeth round or if I want them to be more flat. I think I kind of feel like they should be flat. If it's a pumpkin and you're carving it, it'll probably be more like a, you know, like a flat box. So let me do that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in front, decide on the thickness of the tooth, right? So I think something like that should work. And I'm definitely gonna turn this into a Dynamesh. So I'll do 256. I don't need too much resolution, but whenever I carve stuff, I do like to be in Dynamesh mode, jump out of the perspective view. And I literally just wanna take this panel and cut a tooth out of it. So how do I do that? I can do Control Shift. And what I'm gonna do is, let's start carving this. I'm gonna press Alt to kind of create this bend. I kind of like that. I'm gonna tap Alt twice really fast to make a sharp cut. And I can press Alt again to make another kind of a curve here. And now I have something like this. Now if I let it go, it's gonna give me pretty much exactly what I was looking for. So a tooth that's somewhat flat and maybe looks like something that you would cut out yourself, right? And if we wanted to, we can even angle this a little, right? Why not? Let's just do something like that. Just so it's a little bit sharper, right? Now I'm going to take this and let me change the pivot, and let me unlock the pivot and put it right here. Okay, I'll lock this back up, and now we just have to kind of scale it and just essentially just place it where we want it to be, right? And of course it's way too long, so I can of course change the scale very easily, change the rotation of this, and maybe I want a couple really longer, sharper teeth, you know, here, and then smaller ones along the side. So if you think about it, I don't really need to be doing both sides, right? Because this is going to be symmetrical. Let's just do one side and we'll just flip it over, right? So I'm going to go in this view, maybe make my tooth a little bit thicker, and just kind of put it in position of where I think the front tooth should be. Maybe something like that. We can play around with the rotation, but I kind of like this. I think that's pretty cool. And you know, you can decide what you like. Let's say this is going to be you know, one of them here. I can do Control and click to drag another one, and then I can make it a little bit smaller and rotate a little more, and just make sure that the rotation makes sense from all the angles. That's the tricky part, right? Because we do have our pumpkin somewhat on a strange angle here. So I could do, let's do another one. We'll do Control and drag, maybe one more, or probably a few more, right? And make them smaller yet again. And I'm just having fun and kind of, you know, inventing this as I go. You can, of course, do different size teeth or different shape, anything you like. Holding down Control key, I can just keep making them smaller and smaller. And essentially, I just want to cover most of this space here, right? All right, if I wanted to see what that looks like, let me do Control and drag and check it out. If you wanted to move any one of these individually, just use this brush here called Move Topology. This brush is great. If you make it somewhat large and start moving it, it's going to allow you to move each one individually based on the topology without dealing with masking. Cool little brush as well, very useful. And it did mess up my thing here a little bit, but I don't really care because we can re-dynamesh that if we want to. Let's do that now. We'll do Control and drag and re-dynamesh, and that's perfectly fine. All right, now I want to put them on the other side, so I'm going to do mirror and do mirror and weld. All right, looks like I need a couple more in the front here, so let me go into solo mode. Let me let's turn this on, do auto groups, and let's say I want to grab another one of these, right? So I can always do Control Shift and click. Let's do Control and drag to mask it, Control Shift and click to bring everything back, then Control and click to reverse the mask, and now this guy is unmasked by itself, right? Which means I can grab the move, I can change my pivot again, I can even change the pivot's direction, right? And then holding down the Control key, just like we've been doing, I can just keep copying these even more, right? So let me jump out of the solo and just see what I like. Maybe I want this to be, I don't know, the front ones maybe could be a little bit different. Maybe these are actually a little bit shorter for some reason. That's totally fine. Let me just get it into position. All right, I think that's pretty cool. If I wanted to copy this over to the other side, let me just do something super simple. I'll just do split unmasked. I'm gonna have this by itself, and then I can just mirror it over and mirror and weld, and now I have two of them, right? And now if I turn my polyframe, I have something like this. We can decide if we like that. I can of course still mess with them. Right now they're on their own layer, so I could do whatever I want with them. Maybe I want to make them even more uneven. And of course I can mess these up too. Keep that in mind. Maybe, maybe we don't want them to look exactly symmetrical, right? We could just do something like that and mess this up. So I kind of like that. I think that's pretty cool. I wouldn't mind having these on the same layer, so I'm actually going to go to merge and merge down and say okay, and now all my teeth are in the same layer. If I wanted to name that, I can even call it teeth, right? Very easy. So you can go ahead and name these if you want. Let's take a look. I think that's pretty cool. All right, so I think that pretty much concludes the carving phase of this video. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this. And next, let's begin adding a few more fun elements to this guy and turn him into something a little more special than just a simple pumpkin. Okay, so let's keep going. As a final step to kind of bring this all together, they are separate parts, so never be afraid to merge them, because you can always split them, right? So we don't have to worry about that. Let me jump out of Dynamesh. But essentially, what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all of these pieces and jump out of the Dynamesh mode and merge them together. So I'm gonna go to merge down, and let me just put them all in the same layer, right? So it's just one layer. And the reason I did that is because now we can do some things to the entire pumpkin all at once, right? Just again, be really careful, jump out of the Dynamesh mode, because you don't want to infuse all this geometry together and blend it together. You want to maintain kind of all these pieces separate. So that's important, right, at this point in our sculpt. So one thing I was going to say is you could do is you go to geometry and go to clay polish. And right now you can see the pumpkin is sort of clean and smooth. But one cool artistic effect that you can add to this is if you play with clay polish a little bit. And if I turn on the, you can hold on the control key and read about these. But if you turn up the sharpness and all of this stuff here, so I did 63, 60, and 20. And if I do polish, what that's going to do is going to break some of this flat surfacing and start creating more of a kind of an artsy, stylized, sculpty stone look. That's a lot of words. And you can just keep going, right? You can just keep pressing on it, and you can see what it's doing. It's kind of adding this rich detail to the surface. Now, if you do Control and drag to get rid of it, it's going to give you something like this, right? And in my opinion, personally, I like this way better than having a perfectly smooth surface, right? To me, this is a lot more interesting and much closer to what, you know, stylistically, to what I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create kind of a stylized asset or a character here, right? So again, just something you could do, you don't have to do, but that's an option to keep in mind. And you can see what I currently have. I'm pretty happy with this. Now I really want to turn this into something a lot more special, like a cool little robot or a cyborg. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to save my subtool. Don't forget, you can always grab a spiral and always play with this. This is a lot of fun too for some reason. Just create crazy spirals with your pumpkin, and right away it's like the magic wand for adding, you know, making things more whimsical. So I kind of like that too. You can see what I had before and after, right? This is kind of more normal, and this is a lot more interesting. So all these little things and little touch-ups are important as you're, you know, progressing in your sculpt. All right, so let's go ahead and decide what do we want to do for, how do we turn this into kind of a robotic spider? That's kind of essentially what I was thinking. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him 4 legs, and to do that I just need to create one, and just have kind of these metal pieces plug right into the pumpkin, right? Let's just start inserting different things, right? So I'm going to insert a, let me insert a box, and let's just do something with this box. So we can start kind of building a leg. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out of the perspective mode and build the leg in a kind of a perfect orthographic view. And then we can, you know, tilt it and make it more interesting. But essentially, but initially when we're building it, let's just keep it super simple and flat and, you know, kind of easy to control, right? So what I'm going to do is let's just decide on this box being, you know, let's decide on the thickness of our leg. Maybe something along these lines should be somewhat perfect. And it would probably make a lot more sense for us to turn this into a low poly model, so we can use zModeler for this kind of stuff, right? Kind of a robotic pieces. I think that will probably be the best. So let's do that. If I turn on the polyframe, you can see what the current topology looks like. That's not going to work for me at all, right? So I can always go to geometry, and I can do a Z remesh super low. I can just do even 0.5, detect edges, adapt off, and let's just do Z remesh. And right away it's going to give me something really clean and super simple. And this is too dense for what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to do half, and I'm just going to really dial this down a lot. Just trying to get somewhere where I can have full control over something, right? So how about this? I'm going to go with this. So I have essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns and 1 row, right? 7 by 2. So what I would like next is let's just start playing with this. Let's say this is going to be the part of the leg that kind of comes out, you know, here, right? And this is going to bring a couple basic questions, like how does this move and how does this rotate, right? How does that actually work? So let's think about this. So the first thing we could do is let's punch a hole through these couple pieces and start creating something that could somehow connect to the pumpkin, and then also, of course, rotate. So I'm going to hover over this point. Let me go to actually zModeler, hover over this point, and I'm in point action up here. You can see that. But now I could do split, and let's do a split point, and let me just start dragging this something like this. Okay, I kind of like that. I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to click here and make another one. So now I have 2 of them. Okay, and now let's go to this side, and I'm going to click here and here. And now what I would like to do, I'm going to hover over this face, go to Q Mesh. I'm in Polygon Actions, Q Mesh. Let's do Polygroup All, so that's going to control all the green ones. I'm going to hover over this and just start kind of pressing this in until it kind of snaps and disappears. And that's going to allow me to punch a hole right through the mesh. And this is, you know, what's called a low poly modeling, right? Really cool and very easy and fun. So very different from sculpting, but just as powerful. It's really interesting to combine two different approaches, kind of a, you know, hard surface modeling with organic modeling. It's really interesting. So I encourage you to practice and do that. Okay, so next let's continue playing. I'm gonna go to zModeler and let's do something with these three pieces in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's go to poly group and we'll go to poly loop, and let's just go ahead and click on this, this, and this. So essentially selecting this whole area inside, right? And now to change the shape of it, what I can do is I can go to extrude and let me do poly group all. So again, it's gonna grab all the green ones. I'm just gonna start, you know, pulling this in and create something something that looks like this. I think that's pretty interesting. I like that. If I wanted to add some more detail in here, I can hold on the Alt. Let me select all of these. And you know what? I'll select ones back here as well. So just holding down the Alt key, I can make them you know, white. So zBrush knows this is my selection. So now I can hover over any one of these. Let's go to Inset, switch it to single poly, and if we start dragging this, you could see that it's how it's insetting this in an interesting way. So I'm going to do something like this. I think that's great, and it's going to do it on both sides. So now I can also go to extrude, still polygroup all. So I'm going to use this blue one, and I can maybe push this in just a little bit. And now we have this really interesting kind of a extrusion effect going inside this panel. All right, so that's kind of cool. You can see how we are starting to build something somewhat robotic looking. Okay, so next let's play inside of these two and see what we could do. Let's hover over this edge, go to bevel, edge loop complete, and let's just create like a little bevel inside there, something like this. I can click on this one to repeat the same action or thickness. And next let's do, let's go ahead and do extrude. Let's do poly loop, and let's just simply pull this in, right? And I'm gonna click on this one to repeat the action. So now it's happening on both sides. What if I wanted to close these holes? How would I do that? Well, I can go to delete, and let me do a poly loop, and there's a little orange line that you're seeing, that you see. Make sure you always keep track of that. But I can click on this line pointing down and just click on it to delete it. Let me turn my double on so you can see through. And I could do the same thing here, right? I can just delete all of these. And now to close this hole, all I need to do is just do close. Let's switch this to convex hole, and we could do, I'll just leave all this as is and just simply click on it, right? Now I have something like that, and then of course I can go around and do the same thing with all of these on both sides. I can literally just close this up. And the reason I want to close it up is because I want to make it look like more like bolts. So if I hold on the Alt key, I can select all of these. And let me go around and select both sides, right? So I'm going to do, oops, I'm going to do the same thing on this one. And let me select all, oops, I'm going to select all of these here. So now both sides are selected, which means I can extrude them. I can hover over the face. I can go to extrude. I can do all poly groups. Or I mean single poly, I'm sorry, which means it's going to use the selection. And I can literally just pull this out. And I'm going to pull them out pretty far. I'm going to go way beyond, you know, this place here. And the reason I'm doing that is because now what I can do is I can do an insert. Let's do multiple. And let's just do something like this. So I'm going to do, how many is this? 4, right? And I'm going to click here to repeat it and do the same thing on this one and this one. So I'm doing all 4 of them at the same time. Now what I would like to do is I would like to extrude this piece outside. So I can hover over this face, go to extrude, and let's do poly loop. And let's just extrude this out and create almost like a, I don't know, it almost looks like a bolt of some sort, right? And maybe that's actually a little too much. Maybe we'll do something like that. So it looks like it could spin in there. I think I kind of like that. And then to repeat this, I can just click on it, and it's gonna remember my last one and kind of duplicate it on all 4 sides, right? So very quickly, I'm building something really interesting and mechanical. It would be fun if out of here, there was something that's coming down, right? So like a leg coming down. How do I do that? I can hold on the Alt key. Let's make a selection right there. Just this one. We don't need it anywhere else. And let's do inset, single poly, and I'll just make an inset right here. Now with this selected, let's go to extrude, and let's just push this in. So I'll do something like that. And now what I could do is I can insert something in here that looks like the bottom leg of this guy, right? So to get that going, let's go ahead and let's insert a cone, and let's use a cone as kind of a bottom part of the leg. So I'm gonna grab this, put it into position. I wanna dial this down a lot. It's too dense for me. So I'm gonna go to geometry, and in here, let me just do half of whatever this is, and just kind of start dialing this down and Z remeshing it. And something like that even I think works. I'm not really sure I like the top of it. Let me do Control Z and see. I think this is great, right? So now I just literally just want to make this thin enough to fit inside inside there, and just literally flip it around, and that's going to be essentially the bottom part of my leg, something like this. I wouldn't mind this actually curved, so I'm going to go to Bend Curve, change my res to maybe something like that, and I can create a bend, like an interesting bend, so it looks more, maybe, I don't know, somewhat scary maybe, right? So that looks pretty cool. Let's go ahead and click on the gear and say accept, and I think that works, right? We can of course make sure that it does indeed fit in here, right? And right now it doesn't really, so check this out. Let's create a little space here, and let's make this go inside there, right? How do we do that? Well, instead of playing with this, we can just use this guy. So I'm going to press Alt and select it, and let's just create an extension that's going inside this little cone, right? So let me go into solo mode, hold on the Alt key, let's make a selection, and in here let me just do another inset, and let's just do something like this. Hold on the Alt key, make a selection here, go to extrude, single poly, and let's just literally just pull this out like this. And now if I jump out of the solo mode, you can see that it looks like it's going inside this cone, right? And now if I press Alt, I can select the cone and move it around. It looks like it's a little off alignment here, so maybe something like this maybe looks a little bit better, right? And you can decide if you like that. I think that's kind of interesting. Just for fun, we can even add additional detail to this. I'm gonna go back into ZModeler, and let's just do some something super simple, right? Let's do a poly loop. Let's just do something. Let's even do something like this. Just again, just break this surface up a little bit. We can do something here as well. Let's say I want to extrude not just this group here, right? Let's see, what if I want to take this and this at the same time? How would I do that? Well, what I could do is I can go to poly group, then do a poly loop, and then I can mark them, right? So I can actually click on one, and that's going to assign a different color. I can click on this one as well, and now you can see I have a matching one. If you wanted to control the colors, you can always click on it, hold your left mouse button the entire time down, and then press Alt. And that's going to give you full control over the colors. So then I can come back here, for example, click on it again. Now you see that blue is being selected. Just kind of a cool trick. Now to extrude both of them, I can go back to extrude. Let's do poly group all, right? It's going to grab all the blue ones. And now I can extrude, let's see, both of them at the same time. And I can decide if I want to do something like this or go in. I'm thinking of something along these lines, just for my own personal taste. So just adding these two little elements right away breaks the blade up, and I think it looks a lot more sophisticated, I guess is the word I'm looking for, something a little more detailed, right? Awesome. I'm looking at these guys right here. I would love to add something more to this. And what would be a good way to do this? Let's hover over this and press Alt to select it. And we can jump out of the polyframe for a minute. And let's just see if we can add some more detail to this piece here by just simply inserting something. So what I could do is I can go to my brushes. Let's press I for IMM. Let's go into the spaceship one. And with this being selected, I can press M. And that's going to give me all these different options that I can choose from. And I can use these pieces as insert. For example, I kind of like this one right here, so I'm going to click on it, and what I could do is I can start, I can hover over this piece and start dragging, right? And that's going to give me something that looks almost like a little bolt, I guess, right? And when if I press Control key, it's going to snap to a specific size, and you might wonder what is the size that it's snapping to when I press Control key. Let me undo that. What it's snapping to is the size of your brush. So if I wanted that to be a little bit larger, I can press the S key, right? Make my brush a little bit larger, then start dragging my bolt again, and then hold on Control to kind of lock it in place. And you can see what that looks like. Now you can see that mine is kind of lifted up in the air. Let's say I don't like that. How would I get it a little deeper in? So I can come down here and change the depth settings for my brush. And once again, let me try this again. I'm gonna start dragging, hold on Control key, snap. And then if I look at it, you can see that this time it's actually being inserted a lot deeper into the mesh. And the reason I was holding down the Control key is because now I can go around and repeat the same size bolts for the rest of the mesh. And that's a really cool trick if you wanted to make sure that these, somewhat match, right? I think that looks really nice when they're all the same size. So let me do the same thing on this side as well. I'll start dragging it, press Control key, and just kind of do a quick snap. All right, that's looking really good. If I wanted to do it on this side, I can of course select these and mirror them across by just using the mirror, or it's just as easy, honestly, to just repeat this really quick. All right, I think that's looking really good. And right away you can see how much detail something like this added, even though it's so simple. Let's do a couple more, right? Let's maybe insert something on these large spaces right here. So I'm gonna press M and see if I can find something else I can insert. Well, how about this one right here, Sphere 3. I'm gonna grab that. And let me do the same thing. I'm gonna make my brush somewhat larger, right? So I want this to be fitting right into here. I'm gonna start dragging, press Control key, and that's gonna snap it into place. I'm having the same issue. I'm not liking the depth of this. So let me go ahead and try to fix this. And I think that's a little bit better, right? Let's go ahead and do one here. And I'll repeat the same thing on this side as well. All right, so I think that looks pretty awesome, honestly. And I'm trying to figure out if I want to do even more. I'm just having so much fun. Let's see what else we can do. I'm gonna grab this vent right here, this vent looking thing, and let's see if I can put it inside my object. So let me do something along these lines. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna release it, and it's gonna automatically mask everything else. Now if I grab my move, I can literally just push this in and create almost like a vent effect. And of course I can even squeeze this in as well. And you can see now it's gonna look like there's something in there instead of just a plain shape. And maybe we like that as well. Now I don't have to do it to this side, right? I can just simply mirror it across. If I wanted to only mirror this and I didn't want actually mess with any of the screws, I can always go to my subtool and do something called split by split to similar parts. So if I click on that and say OK, it's going to give me a lot of different pieces, but these are nice because now they're in separate layers. And if I click on this one, I know this is the only one that's going to be flipped on Z. Go to mirror and weld and switch it from X to Z as well. And now if I do mirror and weld, I should see the same one on this side, right? And that is pretty cool and very easy to do. So we can continue playing it and making it a little more and more sophisticated. One of the things you might want to change is how low poly this looks right here. If I click on Alt and select this, Let me subdivide it, but before I subdivide it, I do want to crease my edges. So I'm going to go to Geometry, and let me go to Crease, and I'm going to crease border. So I'm going to click on this button here, and now if I press Ctrl D a few times, I can create something really, really sharp and beautiful. I'm seeing a little issue right there. How would I fix that? What I can do is I can go to Subtools. I can, of course, select this main mesh, grab something like the Move tool, and just literally just move this out. I want to, let's keep going. There's a couple more things that I feel like this design needs. It needs something up here, right? All of these elements here look super simple. We don't really have to worry about the bottom ones, but up here, I think it would be nicer if there was a few more items here, right? So let me click on this shape by holding Alt and click. Let's select it. Go to our polyframe. Let's grab our Z modeler and just do a little more work. I'm going to press Alt and let's do something like this. I'm going to press Space Bar, go to Inset. Let's do a single poly like we've been doing. And let's go ahead and maybe extrude this in as well. I'm going to do polygroup all is fine. I'm just going to push this in. And just like we did on the other side, let's insert something in here that is interesting, maybe like a spike, right? So same thing, I'm going to insert another cone. And I think that's going to be perfect. Let me jump out of the perspective view, grab my cone, put it in position, scale it in, maybe make it just a little bit taller, and do something along these lines. That was essentially my vision, is to kind of have this carry over all the way to the top. I'm going to go to the side view, and let me just make it super skinny. And I just need to make sure that it does fit inside this shape here, right? So I can make this a little bit smaller and maybe skinnier and just do something along these lines. I think that's pretty cool. I can also make it much, much longer. I almost want to make it look like a spike, like a shoulder pad spike. All right, I think that looks nice. Let's go ahead and bend it. I'm going to go to Settings, Bend Curve, and let me just simply bend this in. Something like that, and we can even do something like this. I think is perfect. I'm going to click on the gear and say accept. Let me jump out of polyframe and take a look, see if I like it. I do. I feel like personally it should be more. I wanted something more like this. I think that is a little bit better, maybe a little bit thicker too, right? Now, if I did something like that, how would I get rid of the bottom? Well, I can just simply press Control Shift. Let me go into Draw, press Control Shift, grab my knife tool, and literally just slice this whole bottom part. I don't really need it, right? That's gonna take care of that. And I think that is what I was looking for as far as the top design goes. All right, let's talk about how would this piece here plug into the pumpkin, right? I like the fact that this part rotates. But then obviously all of this square box needs to somehow connect to the pumpkin. So how can we do that? Let's do Alt and click, and we can solo this for 1 second, turn on our polyframe, and let's just continue doing stuff with Z modeler, right? I can hold on the Alt key, make a selection here, and let me just keep doing the same thing. I'm going to do Inset, and let me just do like a little inset, and then let's do a little extrude. So we'll do, let's see, let's hover over this face and go to extrude. I want to make sure I'm in polygon actions. I'm going to do polygroup all, and let me just pull this out, right? So I have something along these lines. Now if I jump out of the solo, you can see that now it's already going into the pumpkin, and you know, somehow it's going to be inserted in there. Let's just take this right here and let's just pull this in. Just make sure it's going inside the mesh. I think that totally works. If I wanted to jump out of the polyframe and take a look, I like this, but if this was an actual object and you put something in there, this right here would probably have some kind of a distress or some kind of marks on here, right? So let's see if we can add something to this as well, right? I'm gonna press Alt and select my pumpkin, and let me just grab even the inflate here. And let's just go around and just inflate all of this here and create almost like an illusion like this was inserted into the pumpkin, right? So, and I honestly completely don't mind making this somewhat blobby and you know, not straight or you know, beautiful, right? You want to make it look like almost like skin hugging the metal piece, right? So you want, it is going to have some blobby stuff around it. I think that's pretty much perfect. So do something like that, and that is what I have, and I actually like this a lot. I think this is great. If you wanted to clean some of this up, you can always hold on the Shift key and just move this a little bit so it looks a little more all right, let's take a look. I like this a lot. Let's decide how many of these legs do we want, right? I initially thought 4, but now I'm thinking 6. I think 6 is going to be even better. So let's add 6 of these legs, 3 on each side, right? So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the pieces and merge them together, right? I don't need them to be separate anymore. So let me do that. I'm going to go to merge. I'm going to do merge down, and let's just merge all of this down, right? So now all of this is going to be together. If I wanted to, I can also go into solo mode for a minute. Let's go ahead and unlock our lock and put this pivot somewhere around here. I think that makes sense, right? Let's lock this back up, and it's in the center, so that's perfect. I'm going to jump out of the solo, go to the top view, and now what I can do is I can duplicate this, and let me make another one somewhere around here like this. And I think that is what I want, so I'm going to do something like this. Let's duplicate this one, the next one, and put one in front. And let's just decide if this makes sense. So maybe the spacing is important, right? I don't want to go into his kind of the mouthpiece here, but something like this for this one. And I can maybe move this just a little bit closer so the distance is somewhat the same, and maybe move it back more, right? All right, let's go ahead and take a look and see if we like this and see if we need to adjust anything. Obviously, it has to make sense as far as the actual insertion goes, right? So we want to insert it into the pumpkin enough where it looks like it's in there. All right, I think that looks pretty cool. The only other thing that I need to do, obviously, is create the same effect, right? So let's go ahead and go back to our pumpkin, grab our inflate once again, and let's just do the same thing with all of these pieces here. Just go around the mesh and create almost like a bubble effect, right? All right, very cool. I think that's looking really interesting. How would we take these legs and now put them on the other side? Well, we can just simply mirror it across, right? So let's do the same thing as we've done before. I don't think I want to merge them just in case, right? Let's go ahead and duplicate them one at a time and just flip it over. So I'm going to make a duplicate of each one, and I can even start them in order, right? I'll do the back one first. I'll duplicate it and just simply mirror it, and I want to mirror it on X, right? So I'm going to flip it over. And let's go ahead and grab the next one, which is going to be this middle one. Very nice. So now we have this interesting looking character. And of course, the one thing that we still have to remember, just need to bubble up his skin a little bit. If I select the pumpkin, remember, we can't just copy this work over to this work, because if you flip it over, you can see that he's not symmetrical. So you don't want to do mirror and weld, right? You don't want to have that symmetry going. This is kind of we're taking an interestingly different approach where this is somewhat asymmetrical or you know, organic, right? So I'm going to grab my bubble and let me just bubble this up and do like a manual sculpting. Very quick because it's so simple. All right, so this is what I have, and I think that looks pretty awesome actually. Let's continue playing. What else can we do? We can definitely give him a few scars. So again, all of these tools are available in my community tab, but I do have these awesome orb brushes that you can download. So let me grab something that I could use for a scar or a stitch, right? This is really cool. Let's grab this brush right here. Let's just give him kind of a scar, kind of a deep scar right here. And I'm gonna let it go and see if I like this. I think I do. This looks pretty intense, right? If I want it to double up, I can do something like that. If you let it go and don't move your camera, you can press 1, and that's going to make it even deeper. So this is really deep. He's been in some serious battle. All right, so that's looking good. There's a few different brushes we could use. There's this orb stitch one that you can insert these. They almost look like donuts, right? They're just donuts in shape of stitches. You could do that. My scar is super huge, so I'm not sure if this is going to work. The other one that I have on my UI is this one right here, also called a stitch. If I click on that, make my brush a little bit larger, because you can just kind of run it across, and it's going to give you these metal looking stitches, which I think are really interesting. And honestly, this I think works a little bit better for what I want. So I'm going to go with this. I'm going to click on it to bake these in. Then I'm going to go to split, and I'm going to do split on mask, right? So that's going to put it in a separate layer. I'm going to grab my move brush, make it somewhat large, and I need to adjust these because they are not currently fitting well, right? Let me raise these up and kind of move them around a little more, and just make sure they're not, floating in the air, right? If I wanted to individually, let's say I want to make a couple of these smaller, how would I do that? What I could do is I can turn on my polyframe, I can do auto groups, and now what we could do is we can grab our move brush, let's turn mask by polygroups on, and we can literally just shimmy these around individually and control the size a little better, right? So maybe these are going to be a little bit smaller, and then they get a bit larger, and I'm going to do the same thing here. This one's going to be smaller, and this is going to be really tiny because it's at the end. It doesn't need to be huge, right? So I have these cool metal stitching, and I can move them around, right? Maybe I don't want them to be exactly the same. I actually like the fact that maybe they are not, so it's a little more crazy, right? I like this a lot. I think that's great. Let's go ahead and jump onto the polyframe and take a look. I'm going to save my tool. And at this point, you can get super creative. Honestly, if this was a game character and I was making a game, I would probably... I like the fact that he has these sharp teeth, so he can run really, really fast towards you and then kind of, chump you up. He could do that. Or, it would be really cool too if you want to take the time to do it. Just like we did these, it would be awesome if you had like two huge weapons sticking up, like rockets or machine guns or some kind of blasters. I think that would be really awesome if you're making a game character. And then also think about the fact that if this was indeed a game character, how cool is it going to be to destroy these guys in the game, right? You shoot it and it just explodes all over the place with pumpkin juice and seeds, and these legs maybe fold in and this little thing flies up like the top of his head. That would be hilarious. So I don't know how many of you guys are actually making games out there, but just an idea, just throwing it out there. It would be really, really awesome. So I think for as far as I want to take this, I think I'm going to stop here because this video is getting kind of long, and I could play with this for the next 2-3 hours, just keep building it, making it crazier and crazier. Alrighty guys, hopefully you're making something cool. Thank you so much for joining me today. Would love to hear some feedback, and just let me know, what are you doing or how far did you take this? And let's go ahead and meet in our next video.